The date is August 24th, 410 AD. The night air is heavy inside the Aurelian walls. The greatest city on earth is sleeping, or at least it is trying to. The citizens of Rome are starving, they are terrified. For months, they have looked over their battlements and seen nothing but the campfires of a barbarian army. For 800 years, this city was the center of the human universe. It was the Caput Mundi, the head of the world. It was the eternal city. The psychological grip of Rome was so absolute that the very idea of it falling was not just terrifying, it was impossible. It was like imagining the sun falling out of the sky. But on this hot summer night, the impossible became reality. At the Salarian Gate, in the north of the city, there is a sound. The grinding of a heavy iron bar being lifted, the creak of rusted hinges, and then the silence is shattered. The Visigoths have entered Rome. For 3 days, the torch of civilization flickered and nearly went out. This wasn't just a military defeat, it was a psychological apocalypse. The sack of Rome in 410 AD didn't just break buildings, it broke the heart of the ancient world. How did the invincible empire crumble? Who opened the gates? And what happens when the eternal city realizes it is mortal? This is the story of the day the ancient world ended. This is the story of the first apocalypse. To understand the horror of that night, we have to understand the man who made it happen. The tragic irony is that the man who destroyed Rome didn't want to destroy it. He wanted to be part of it. His name was Alaric, king of the Visigoths. Alaric was not a mindless savage. He was a trained Roman soldier. He spoke Latin. He had fought alongside the Roman legions. He led a people who were refugees, fleeing the terrifying Huns. All Alaric wanted was a homeland for his people and a general's rank for himself. He wanted a seat at the table. But the empire he was trying to negotiate with was a rotting carcass of its former self. By the early 5th century, the Western Empire was ruled by a young man named Honorius. And Honorius might go down in history as one of the most incompetent rulers to ever wear the purple. While the barbarians were at the doorstep, Honorius wasn't in Rome. He was hiding in the fortress city of Ravenna, surrounded by impenetrable swamps, safe and sound. History tells us that Honorius was more interested in raising poultry than ruling an empire. There is a famous story that tells you everything you need to know about him. When a messenger arrived in Ravenna to tell the emperor that Rome had perished, Honorius burst into tears. He cried out, "But I just fed her from my own hand." He thought they meant his favorite pet chicken, which he had named Roma. When the messenger clarified that the chicken was fine, but the city had been burned, the emperor was visibly relieved. This was the man standing between Alaric and the destruction of the world. Between the ambitious Alaric and the useless Honorius stood a dangerous game. Alaric marched his army into Italy to leverage a deal. He demanded gold, grain, and land. The Roman Senate promised him everything and delivered nothing. They betrayed him repeatedly. They even slaughtered the families of Gothic soldiers serving in the Roman army, a massive blunder that drove 30,000 vengeful warriors straight into Alaric's camp. By the year 408, Alaric had had enough of talking. He marched his massive host down the Italian peninsula. He bypassed the emperor in the swamps. He went for the throat. He went to Rome. When Alaric arrived, he didn't attack the walls. He didn't launch catapults. He did something much more cruel. He simply waited. He seized the port of Ostia and cut off the grain shipments from North Africa. He strangled the city. The siege was a descent into hell. Rome had a population of nearly 1 million people. When the food stopped, the city began to eat itself. First, they rationed the bread, then the meat. Then the animals disappeared from the streets. The stray dogs, the cats, the rats. The historian Zosimus recounts horrific tales. He speaks of the price of human flesh. Whispers of cannibalism began to circulate in the dark alleys. The stench of death hung over the Forum. The Senate, desperate and terrified, sent envoys to Alaric. They tried to bluff him. They told the Gothic king that if he attacked, he would face a population of hundreds of thousands, ready to fight to the death. Alaric laughed in their faces. He famously replied, "And the thicker the grass, the easier the scything." He knew they were dying. When they asked him what he would take to leave, he demanded all the gold, all the silver, and all the barbarian slaves in the city. The envoys asked, "If you take all that, O king, what will you leave us?" Alaric looked them in the eye and said, "Your lives." Rome paid. They melted down the statues of their gods to pay the barbarian. Alaric withdrew, but the peace was a lie. Emperor Honorius refused to ratify the treaty. He insulted Alaric again. Alaric returned. He blockaded the city a second time, then a third. By August of 410, patience had run out. The city was broken, but the walls of Rome were still formidable, 50 feet high. Alaric couldn't break them down, but he didn't need to. Treason is a powerful weapon. We don't know who did it. Some say it was a noblewoman named Proba, acting out of pity for the starving citizens. Others say it was rebellious slaves. But shortly after midnight, on August 24th, the massive Salarian gate was unlocked from the inside. The sack of Rome had begun. 30,000 Visigoths poured into the streets. The sound was deafening, the clash of iron, the screams of the awakening citizens, and the roar of flames. The gardens of Sallust were set ablaze, the fire raging so hot it melted the laid roofs of the temples. But this was a strange apocalypse. It was a Christian apocalypse. Alaric and his Goths were Christians. Before the attack, Alaric gave strict orders: plunder the city, take the captives, but do not destroy the great churches of St. Peter and St. Paul. Any Roman who took refuge there was to be spared. And so, amidst the slaughter, there were surreal scenes. Gothic warriors marching alongside terrified nuns, escorting them to safety. Crowds of Romans running toward the churches, while the barbarians stood guard at the doors. But for those caught in the streets, there was no mercy. The Forum Romanum, the heart of the Republic, was overrun. The mausoleum of Augustus was broken open. the ashes of the first emperors scattered to the wind, the ultimate desecration of the past. The great families of Rome were stripped naked, beaten, and held for ransom. The most shocking moment was the capture of Galla Placidia, the sister of the emperor himself. The daughter of the Caesars was taken from her palace and treated as a prize of war, forced to march in the barbarian wagon train. For 3 days, the city was stripped. It wasn't completely leveled. Alaric wanted wealth, not rubble, but the humiliation was total. The Romans believed they were divinely protected. When the Goths walked freely through the Senate house, that belief died. On the 3rd day, laden with wagons groaning under the weight of Roman treasure, Alaric led his army south, leaving behind a city that was silent, smoking, and forever changed. The news of the sack spread across the world like a shockwave. In Bethlehem, the great scholar St. Jerome collapsed in grief, writing, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." Rome did not disappear that day. It would limp on for another few decades, but the spell was broken. The eternal city had been violated. The sack of 410 AD marks the psychological end of antiquity and the painful birth of the Middle Ages. As for Alaric, the man who broke the world did not live long to enjoy his victory. Just months later, while marching south, Alaric died of a sudden fever. His men were devastated. They wanted to bury their king where no Roman would ever find him. Legend tells us they forced captives to divert the flow of the Busento River in southern Italy. In the dry riverbed, they dug a massive grave. They buried Alaric there, along with a mountain of the treasure looted from Rome. Gold, silver, and jewels were laid to rest with the barbarian king. Then they released the river back into its course. The water rushed over the grave, sealing it forever. They killed the captives who had done the digging so that no living soul would know the location. To this day, somewhere in Calabria, under the rushing waters of the Busento, lies the man who conquered Rome, sleeping on a bed of stolen gold. Alaric showed the world that nothing is divinely protected. No empire is safe. No walls are high enough. And nothing, not even Rome, lasts forever. If you enjoy real stories from history like this, subscribe to the channel. More forgotten moments of the past are coming.